a long day again, but another successful day in our minds in terms of what we were trying to accomplish today. We did a little bit of trade back scenario and some juggling around, target some players that we felt would be in a spot to be able to grab and round out their group of kids that we were able to bring on board. And excited that each and every one will be here for development camp, and they're all excited about joining the Boston Bruins. Overriding theme would be that we were looking for, as I mentioned last night, the high level skill that we can find, the compete level that we can find, and we know the trajectory and the development of each and every one of them in some cases is far apart. Some of the kids that are playing at lower levels and then going to take the next step. We'll be eager to see how they do and translate, but excited about the trajectory of each and every one of them. So, questions?
With the Moore kid, he says he's going directly to BC. Are you guys on board with that as well, in light of the struggles that Letourneau had there in his first year?
Yeah, a little different scenario going from a prep school environment. That group of kids play at the highest level against older kids in the USHL and then their peer groups across many different tournaments. So I think you've got a much wider talent pool that they're competing against. They're playing against their peer group each and every day and practicing in an environment I think is more conducive to having success to go into college right away. So we feel very comfortable. He's got a lot of physical maturity to still do. I think the college environment will lend to him to be able to do that and with their strength program. So it'll be good. It'll be a nice test for him. The skill, the hockey sense, the skating ability. They're right on track for him to jump in that lineup and compete for ice time.
Don, sticking with Moore, has kind of an interesting background from musically and his family, and not coming from a hockey family. Is that just an interesting coincidence, or do you think some of the things that he's been interested in and kind of mind-broadening sort of stuff that you see reflected in the way he approaches hockey and the creativity that he brings to the game? Do you feel like some of those things are connected?
He's obviously got a diverse background. He's lived in Switzerland. His parents have a work ethic and a path that's a little unique as well. He's drumming to his own beat in that sense. Would sit down and talk about his ability to play the piano in a confident manner, but also talk about his hockey and his passion for it, and the fact that his parents were very supportive of him trying the sport, albeit they were not introduced to it. So he's a unique kid, and I think he'll thrive in the BC environment, both on and off the ice. But he was fun to get to know a little bit at the combine and have our guys follow up throughout the year. Even just reading the questionnaire side of it, you realize right away that this is a kid that has a unique perspective on things and is well spoken.
What are some of the things you guys ask in a questionnaire? What are some of the things you're hoping to find out from it?
Well, in some of those cases, you're asking, is there a hidden talent or something that you have an interest in? And obviously that pops off the page. Even if they write piano, in some cases we've had kids that pick up guitar, and other kids that are like, no, I really play guitar. And this one, he really plays piano, and he's damn good at it. So it's just great. And he went right into his the path of his parents and how he values the hard work and the ambition that they've had, and he feels that he applies that in every way. He's a good student. The piano, he was very dedicated. Hockey, he's very dedicated, and those are kids that they find a way to excel in whatever they choose to do.
Don, looking at the two defensemen you guys picked up in Pedersen and Blanar, what kind of stood out to you about their skill sets, and how do you think they can maybe translate that to the pro level in a couple of years? Yeah,
a little longer path for both those kids from the standpoint of development. They both have size. They both skate really well. Now you just got to allow them to sort of get into, playing at that higher level and allowing those things to continue to translate. They both have some options they're going to pursue over the next 2 years in terms of whether or not they just stay where they are, where they're comfortable. But usually those kids start to get phone calls pretty quickly after they've been drafted and understand what they may want to pursue. Some of the kids college route, some of the kids now the CHL stuff opens up, we'll be supportive in what they want to do, but open-minded when they come in if they have questions for us to be able to have them understand what that development path for each one individually, most importantly. But both of them physically have to continue to, to develop skating, size, and again, I think there's skill sets there. We feel we can teach the defensive side of the game, but as I said before, we're looking for players that continue to drive offense but are also competitive on both sides of the puck.
I was actually going to ask you about Blenar. It's a guy who, Googling him, a little bit tough to get information from some of the...
Throws you a curveball there recently,
really
didn't
did. What have you noticed about him, and what have your scouts noticed about his game and his progression thus far?
Well, testament to the scouts that, when you realize you got to make sure they input the right name, and recent name change might throw that off, so good on us. But again, it's just a testament to the scouts traveling anywhere and everywhere. He himself has gone to Czech Republic to play in Sweden, and it's you're just trying to make sure. You might find a young man, in this case, that's pretty raw. He's in a bit of a underdeveloped frame right now, great skater, wants to compete, probably trying to do too much at times, and you just sort of like I've used this analogy before, but there's a piece of clay there that you want to get a hold of and see if you can, you start to mold and stretch and get him to understand like the attributes he has. Those are really attractive, and now we can, sort of build in some other things. But a unique young man.
Sticking to the defensemen, those are two left shots. I'm curious, organizationally, you don't have a lot of right shot defensemen in the pipeline now. Do you go into a draft thinking you want to add that, it just didn't break that way, or do you not really think about it that way going into a draft?
Well, all the prospects we drafted today are left shots, playing, different positions. Yeah, ideally, you want to have things, equal. Now some of these kids can play the offside. Mostly the left guys go and play the offside. You're really just making sure you're trying to draft the best players and then let things play out. If you're dealing from a position of strength in your prospect pool, chances are there's a need somewhere else that you may have to look at that. Organizationally, again, we're trying to make sure we identify which players have a chance to play in the National Hockey League and draft them.
Don, with the draft segment over and you look ahead to July 1st, what is your initial read in terms of quality, quantity of available players, and how the whole market right now might suit some of your needs?
Yeah, well, we started with a little bit of our RFA house cleaning that we're trying to chip away at. We may have some information on that in the next day. Start to fill out our roster. As we've said before, we've been trying to sign some of our players that fall into that category. Continued talks, as I said before, with Henry. We've explored, obviously, trading in and around the draft and bringing players in. We had a couple of those things that we looked at. Maybe they come to bear over the next day or so as well. And we'll foray into free agency if we haven't filled those holes via trade. So the quality of it, again, you won't know which players are leaving their current environments. Some guys sign, today and tomorrow and the following day, right up until the free agency period begins. And so ultimately, you try and forecast who's available and what players would be leaving their current environments, but even the typical rumors of sign and trade aspect of things that people are executing right up until the final buzzer.
What were the attributes that you liked about Cooper Simpson, and how much did seeing him score when he went to the USAHL after the high school season maybe help, that those were transferable skills that you were seeing?
Yeah, that was a nice thing for our scouts to see it, albeit in a small sample of the 9 games he played, but 7 goals in 9 games in that league when you're just jumping in, come from high school, is pretty good. People might indict the fact that he stayed in Minnesota, but again, a unique situation where he was at a school that hadn't been in that, championship mindset. He wanted to try and complete that task and stay there, so you have to sort of pat a young man on the back for that, and then jumped right in and had success in the USHL. So, he's making a decision about where he plays next year, and leading into where he goes to NODAC. Again, the scoring potential of the young man is pretty unique. Offensively, I think he's a really gifted player. Again, some of those areas that we identified leading into the draft that we were going to make sure we were having a keen eye for. Will Zellers is a good example of somebody that we identified at the deadline that is a little further along probably than Cooper, or at least a year out. He's going to college and scored in the same way. So maybe a little similarity in that sense. But again, trying to identify the skill sets that translate to the National Hockey League, and Cooper had a good year.
Don, I know there's always travel glitches in these things, but right now, all these kids that were drafted the last 2 days will be in Dev Camp. That's the plan.
That's our plan, Kevin. We have, thankfully, really good people working on that right now. Clearly, with a couple of the kids in Europe, that's a quick turnaround. But each was excited to realize they might be getting on a plane as early as tomorrow morning and join us. I mean, they're eager to learn if they're going to get drafted. And when they get drafted, the general process is that teams are going to join, bring them over right away for Dev Camps. Some are a little spaced out a little differently, and they have a little more lead time. Ours just happens, quickly, so we'll get them here as efficiently as we can.
I just wonder if you can reflect on the whole process here, to have a first round or a couple in the second round and to have this many kids. I would have to think, from your perspective, it changes the energy in the room, it changes the energy in your head, and and looking at everything, roster building and team building.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's been a long time since we've gone in with a little bit of volume. Now, again, it didn't stop us from trying to move back or up in the draft to target some players that we felt were, we might get in a position to take, rather than just the volume aspect of things. But the excitement is there, and even leading in, you could tell our scouting staff in general, with such a disappointing season that we had, there was an energy in realizing that we have to take advantage of the missteps that the club had, and they want to make sure they're trying to deliver the best players we can. We're excited with each and every one of them, and now we'll start that process with development tomorrow, and we still have a little bit of that with an eye towards the future with multiple picks in the first round, in upcoming years. That doesn't mean they're going to get the same swings and the same amount. I've been generally aggressive by nature, to try and win and build. Again, repeating the fact that this past season was painful.
One of your later round picks, Chandler, there. Pretty modest point totals during the regular season, but looked like he had a really good postseason, a strong finish to his year. Did that bump him up on your radar a bit, seeing how he played in those big moment kind of games, especially in the end of the third round there?
Again, Al Bissonnette, our Quebec scout, we follow the kids all year long. We're not just waiting the fact of kids in the first part of the season. In his case, he was coming off of an injury and had been sick the summer before. So again, getting his feet back under and feeling better, probably trying to put on some weight that he had lost, feeling more comfortable as the season went along, more comfortable in the league and his own team, and that was noted. And guys now going back in, as our area guys do, draw the crossover guys back in to identify as a player playing better as the season goes along. It's usually a good indicator that his competitive level is going up as the games get more important. So, a good indication of why our guys like Cole.
And just one question on the rules have recently changed with the CHL and the NCAA.
There's a lot of rules that have been changing in the last, 48 hours and before, but yes.
Are guys like Moore and Hagens able to do anything beyond Dev Camp now, or are those rules still in effect where once the school year starts, they're not available for you in any regard in terms of rookie camps or prospect challenges, things like that?
There's actually a rule that they could attend training camp. It's a little bit of a nuance, but they're already in school. At the end of the day, they couldn't play in a rookie games. They couldn't play in exhibition games. So it's highly, highly unlikely, unless the player is leaving school, that they're going to be in that environment. One more, and then I'll turn it over to Rye.
You could have as many as 6 players at BC this year, 6 of your prospects. That's a pretty unique situation. What do you like about that and about BC and Greg Brown in particular?
Adam McQuaid, who heads up our development, it's an easy commute for him. Now, it's unique in the sense that, Koskinen and Jelvig are Swedish players. not identified, in your next, as your next door neighbor, right? They're going there to play, their independent decision to go there. Gasso's a California kid that went to the development program. Hagen's a Long Island kid that went to the development program. Moore's a Canadian kid that ends up at the NDP as well, so they're coming from everywhere. It's just, one of the coincidences happens that they made decisions regardless of where they were being drafted. Now, is it a benefit that they're in your backyard and sometimes practicing a Warrior and you can sit down and watch them or go down and say hello? Yeah, there's a good benefit to that from the Boston Bruins standpoint. They get familiar with the city. They're excited about our team. They might be able to come and see a game. They know they're playing at the Beanpot, where we play each and every night. So it's a nice side benefit to some degree, but it's not a target that we're just looking for players because those are all drafted before they go there.